Alrighty, I see some folks starting to pile in right away here. I'm going to give it a moment to let the majority join. However, it is an open forum, so if anybody that is joining right away has questions, get those questions in for me, and we get going in that manner. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to take a moment before we get rolling here, and I'll just go ahead and do my best to keep this informative related to trade ideas in the market overall. As I always do say, for those of you who are familiar, I do prefer it when you folks drive the content with your questions. I think that is best for everyone. Helps you get out of the software what you need, and then you don't have to listen to me aimlessly drone on about the market in ways that many others could drone on about it as well. So once again, folks, this is an open forum. Please get your questions into the questions panel for me, and I will get to those right away. Don't be shy, get them in. So I like to say, I cannot answer the questions that are not asked. So again, those of you joining right away here, get those questions in and we will get rocking and rolling on those. If not, I'll take a moment, let people join. Alrighty, so 12:01, no questions coming in. I guess do what I can to keep this informative and related to the topics at hand while I wait for questions. What the heck? We got an Apple chart up. We could start there, right? What do we comment on Apple here, right? Let's see. My drawing tool out. It's always handy to have. And yeah, True Seeker, I'll look at Mara. Since I started on an Apple thought, let me get there, and then I'll look at Mara. So, Apple had back nearly a year ago this gap and go, right? Really shot up, a pullback and a move. And then something happened. Apple gave a good chunk of that all back for whatever reason. Earnings, maybe. I have no idea. And just grinded along for almost a whole quarter here before deciding at the end of last year, make itself a new all-time high. And just before the really end of last year, began a sell-off that went into this year. We got earnings behind it now. Looked to be a positive reaction to earnings, then a delayed negative reaction, and we've erased the whole thing and rejected off around that 250 level now. So a lot of big nothing burger for Apple, right? I mean, if we look at things here, from here to here, we're the same, right? From, let's say, sometime in July or the beginning of August. Yeah, sometime in July last year, about the same. Look back from May, up slightly. So that be that. Mara, sure. And anybody else with questions, get the questions in here, folks, right? Don't be shy. I mean, by bounce, do you mean today? Because, I mean, there isn't really a bounce going on here. That was not an up day yesterday, really, on its earnings. Looks like it had earnings post-market, and it's been a gap and fade all day long here. So, I mean, this isn't a big downtrend. That's all there is to it. I believe crypto's getting beat up a little bit here the last week or so. I don't know what it is, really. Don't pay a whole lot of attention to crypto. But I know this is crypto related. So it just looks like, first off, very volatile stock. We'll start with that. And I don't really ever see this thing trending. Right? Like the closest to trending it ever got is this big move here. And that was it. And it's never trended again since. And I don't know that I'd exactly call that a trend. finds itself shooting up and pulling right back and grinding along here and pulling right back and grinding along and up and pull right back, and just kind of, if anything, it's in a downtrend now. Like I said, hard to call any of this a trend one way or the other. So you're at territory not seen since. Let me get off this. I don't like this chart for when I'm trying to go back in time like this here. Let's draw a line. And again, anybody with questions, don't be shy. All right, so, we're at levels not seen since the end of 2023. And if it were to give up this area here, I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm to think that we can't come down to here and here at this point. So it doesn't look healthy, to be honest. And I'll say this, you got this declining volume in it overall, declining interest, right? So that doesn't bode well for bullish price action right now. You're seeing your largest bars overall to be in groupings of red, with just one outlier here in green. This red grouping in here outweighs green grouping in here, I would say, for sure. So not an awesome looking chart, but this is, look, this isn't something you're just finding trends and trying to be a part of the trend, I feel like. I mean, look at these huge topping and bottoming shadows that happen all over the place, these big gap up days, and it fades type of stuff. So this thing it's dependent on crypto and crypto headlines and things like that. There's no, they're not making sales. They're not coming out with some innovative chip. They're not producing some car that's going to change the future, right? There's nothing like that going on with this here. It's just a very speculative play. I don't know there's anything long term to do here outside of kind of holding and hoping that crypto goes crazy, essentially. That's my 2 cents on Mara. Curious, it's Riot, because they kind of move hand in hand. Yeah, same thing. Riot looks pretty not so awesome. I'd say Riot looks even worse than Mara, to be honest. That doesn't look like it gets any support till, there's possible support down here. Let's see, maybe down here, somewhere, one of those two spots you could pick off for some support. But it gives up this area here. So look out for another couple of dollars moving down. Like I said, those are both stocks that if all of a sudden Bitcoin decides to turn around and run back up towards 100,000 and over, I suspect you're going to see these do well. That's just kind of the hand in hand that they have. So, all right, still no questions coming in for me here. So that happens. What are you going to do? I'm going to shoot a tree maps. I'll have to report that when we wrap up here. Now, what else can we do right now? We look at the market on Monday when I did this. I can't remember. So let's see. Today's Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. So yeah, we're still down from Monday, down from that candle on last Friday. I'm sure those that are bearish or want to be bearish are licking their chops at this point. I'd note this level right here. This is kind of a big level. Think of it spongy. We can come down a little bit, we can go up a little bit, but this area in general here, clearly we're going to want to defend that. And interestingly enough, we almost came down, basically tagged that today, so it's around that 590 level there. And big nothing burger from the market for a while. It's this gap up and grind to make an all-time high, right? Grind and make an all-time high and pull right back off of it, make an all-time high, pull right back off of it, make an all-time high and pull right back off it. We're eking out these all-time highs along the way here. Just keep coming down and punching into this level down here. So A lot of folks out there will tell you the more stock touches a level like that, the more significant that level becomes. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious, but significant in what way? Significant that it breaks down, or significant that it jumps off, right? And I'm sure you got 1,000 people out there screaming into the void why one is right and the other is wrong, and so on and so forth. So at this point, I think we're in that position where if you want to be bullish, you're not buying breakouts, right? Because we're not breaking out. You're buying where you believe there's value in pullbacks, and having a well thought out stop loss wherever that happens to be to the downside. Should we give up from that level while ready to take profit? Should we run back up into the levels that are giving us trouble? And that's what I'd be doing. Any kind of chart that looks like this right now in the overall market. Good day. Yesterday, Dan talked about Grok. Could you please show us how to connect? Yeah, you'd have to wait till Steve or Andy comes back in. I'm not familiar with that stuff. It's stuff that they were experimenting with, and I'm not. So sorry. I don't think there's anything to necessarily feed Grok. I think what they were feeding was OpenAI or ChatGPT or whatever it is. But I'm not really involved in any of those things. So you can shoot an email attention to Steve and ask him to info@trade-ideas.com. So if you want to shoot that over to Steve there, he might be able to better explain what he was going over with that stuff. Hybrid, I'm not sure if you're familiar with who and what Trade Ideas is, but we are not a financial advisor, so we do not tell people what to buy, sell, hold. We can give no financial advice whatsoever. I will say this: before you get involved in any stock, if you don't have a trading plan on what you're doing with that stock when you're in it, you're not a trader, you're a gambler. Don't do that. That's the advice that I can give you for that. And I would say, if you don't have a plan, make one right now, right? And stick to it. I mean, we can look at a NVDA chart and kind of just walk through some key areas here, right? So obviously earnings are behind it now, and a mixed bag from the earnings, right? Gapped up positive, traded down negative, right? But it hasn't really gone anywhere at this point. So one school of thought might be, you're in the money and you're not sure, take the profits now. That could be one school of thought, right? No one ever went broke from taking profits, especially if they took profits on a trade they weren't prepared for. You can start to draw lines. There's no magic to these lines, just what my eye sees looking at this chart. And, look, we traded down to this area the day before yesterday. We traded down to this area again today. So at the moment, it's providing support. If it should give that up, all of a sudden, we might be considering looking at a level down here for that next stop down the rail, right? It doesn't seem unreasonable. You have to ask yourself a question, though. Am I willing to, hold through these kinds of gyrations? On the flip side of this, should this thing get itself back in gear, well, it's going to have, the high of today to contend with. And it was something I didn't point this out before. Looking at this line when I've got it down here, look how much price is touching this line, right? Almost gets it here, gets it all through here, gets it here, gets it here, here, and back here as well, right? So it's a significant area for price action on this right here, right? And the same thing at the line that it's traded down to right now. I'm not even looking at what prices are on these things, but look at how many times it has touched this line and towed that line, right? And then for good measure to the upside, there's no happy accident where it stalled out today on the gap up. Once again, we're looking at this line as a fairly significant area of price action, right? And everything above it right now has been a false start, but it can't seem to really get below this line since, back in here, right? We've got whoopsies up here to the upside, whoopsies down here to the downside, and really just kind of chopping around in this whole area up here for the most part. So that's that's what I can really give you on that as far as that goes. And if I could impart on you one piece of advice that I wish I had partaken in much sooner than I thought I did, is there's no reason to buy a stock or short sell a stock if you do not have a sound reason for the entry, and if you do not have a sound trading plan. And a trading plan isn't, I'll just do this if after I buy it, if it goes up, and I'll just do that. What is the reason you're doing what you're doing to the upside? What is the reason what you're doing to the downside, right? Outside of having an actual thought out tested plan, whether that plan is, I like to draw support lines, and I'm going to work into those support lines to the upside or downside, resistance, support. I'm using a moving average, a VWAP, the bottom of a prior candle, something like that. Test these things out in a simulator, obviously, and so on and so forth. Anybody else with questions, don't be shy. I'm happy to, whatever we got going on, anything is better than nothing for question. Like I said, if not, we'll just mess around and look at stuff. We looked at that SPY chart and look at our friends, the Qs. Qs leaning into it a little more to the downside, right? And again, looking at areas where price seems to like to touch, think of it as a spongy area in here. Doesn't seem unreasonable to come down and touch that 500 at this point. Always works out that these big hole numbers are significant players without a question. We're sitting up above it, 9+ points above it at this point anyways. But, no clear direction in the market for several months now. Diamonds represent Dow Jones 30. A little different looking than the other ones here. More of a consolidation after some sell-off here. These topping shadows showing that the sellers are coming in and trying to smack down the buyers each time. Right? See, IWM must still be below that 220 level, right? Yep. Still below that 220 level, weakening even further down into this level here. So we'll see what happens. Of course, the IWM isn't going to make or break the market one way or the other. Been in a bull market for quite a while without much help from the IWM at all. And in fact, one could argue that when the IWM finally caught up and made its first new all-time high in a few years, the rest of the market started to look not so awesome. So, my take on Bollinger Bands. So I have a personal take on it, in the sense that I met John Bollinger, very, very nice gentleman. I've met him a few times, actually. And in the spirit of John, he created bands that, to very simplify this, a break of the top band is momentum up, break of the lower band is momentum down. I am aware that a very popular way, and maybe even more popular than what John intended them for, is to use them as a revision to the mean. For those that don't understand what that means, Bollinger Bands are 2 standard deviations above and 2 standard deviations below a 20 SMA. And so revision to the mean would mean a revision back to that 20 SMA from the break of the lower or upper band, providing a long or short entry in that regard. With that said, my personal take on Bollinger Bands is I use them actually like John does in one scan that I have. That's displayed up here on my screen. I do not use them as my own technical indicator, to be honest. I've never put them on a chart outside of just a discussion with someone. But this scan here, my relative strength from the open, does use Bollinger Bands. It's looking for stocks that are 85% above the lower band, trying to find momentum breaking out to the upside on I think I used a 15-minute time frame. Or was it 5? I can't remember anymore. Let's see what my top list. What do you have in store for me? Top list. It's been so long. So really paid attention. 5-minute Bollinger Bands. There we go. 85% above the lower band. So that's my short and skinny on Bollinger Bands. I would say that it would behoove someone that wants to use any indicator, whether it be Bollinger Bands, an SMA, an EMA, envelopes, RSI, so on and so forth. Have an idea that you want to do with testing it. Take some mock trades in it. Write down what happened in every one of those mock trades, and then look back at what went well and what went wrong in them. And after, let's say, 15, 20 mock trades, you're going to see the same things going right in each of the trade for the most part, and you'll see the same things going wrong in each of those trades for the most part. And that can help lead you into devising a workable plan from there. You know, I couldn't argue against a revision to the mean plan with Bollinger Bands. There are plenty of people that do it, and they do well. I think it's safe to say that John is a fairly big entity in the world of technical analysis, and it's safe to say that he has done well over his lifetime of technical analysis and with his namesake bands. Let's see, what else is happening here? Take a look at who's getting beat up the most. Chips, semiconductor friends. They ain't looking too good right now. They ain't looking too good. They're also not looking as bad as some would make it out to be either. Let's be honest here, right? So, long time since they made a new all-time high. Running really just sideways for quite a while here. One could argue a whoopsie here and a whoopsie there. I'm just grinding along to the bottom of this range right now again. Clearly breaking down in this range would not be good for anybody that's bullish. Yeah, no, they're great. And like, you know, they're a great indicator, especially because you got, you know, two different things to consider from it. You know, 20 SMA is popular in general on every time frame for the most part. And then that 2 standard deviations above and below really gives you a nice look at the momentum. And some would consider as that those bands widen, right? And you move towards the top and widen those bands out. Well, you know, you've made your momentum move, and what goes up must come down. Although, you know, the market continuously moves up overall over, you know, time in general. In the shorter time frames, one could say this is a good point to check out as it moves towards the top of that band, and using either the 20 SMA or the lower band as another point to look for a bounce and a move back up again through that. You know, and again, the name, you know, really kind of giving namesake to the band name or the envelopes. Bands and envelopes being very similar in general. So yeah, the semiconductors do not look awesome. Gold, ain't that something? Gold's down over the last 5 days. Is that even legal anymore? I tease, but you know, gold is really just kind of done its thing at this point for quite a while now. Really making moves here, but anyways, giving a little back at this point. Your XLK Technology Fund. I would have thought this looked worse than it did. So, you know, there's its all-time highs right through here, obviously off of it, stuck in this range, and once again, really stuck in that range outside of this little whoopsie that happened through here. That's not a great line. Not the best. A bigger whoopsie than I realized as I went to draw that. But again, heading back to the bottom of this range, not good for the bulls, good for the bears. But it is a range for now, and we'll see how that holds itself out. And again, anybody with questions, don't be shy. These live streams are not meant for me to just talk general market talk, especially because I'm nobody special when it comes to this stuff. You could get this from 1,000 other people out there. What you can't get from 1,000 other people is someone that knows trade idea software as well as I do. There are few that do. So that's why I encourage everybody to pick my brain as far as the software goes. Uranium, wasn't that real hot for a minute? Yep, not anymore. Pretty certain that came back down to earth here. So Tough on uranium. Count builder channel rundown. Is it in a dock channel bar? Because if not, it's tough for me to open. I lose my layout if I do, and I'd like to not lose my layout. It's not. Oh, what the hell? It's just data that I'm farming, right? So what if I lose it? Channel bar. Hold on, I got to change a bunch of stuff. Otherwise, if I open this, I don't know where the heck it's. Well, let's try it. I'm going to open it. See what happens. All right, it opened on the screen. That'll work. So, we can go over what's going on here. So let's look at the configure. We'll start with this top list. I'm looking at stocks. On the lower end here, with the minimal volume traded, I would call it. Now it'd be up from the closing with 10 relative volume. So you're looking at stuff that you're trying to catch it early enough with the shares traded, but keep out stuff that doesn't have any potential on the day with low relative volume. So it's got to be doing 10 times what it's doing. That's what you got going on here. On fire. What's on fire? Reminds me of NBA Jams from Sega and Super Nintendo. He's on fire. So you've got new high ask filtered, new high bid filtered. So I guess what you're really trying to find here with these is stocks that just continuously to move up, and the bid and ask continue to move up as well, showing that the price action is being chased. And then you get something similar with the filters as you did with that top list here, essentially, but dialed back on the relative volume to only be doing 4x relative volume. And so, one of the themes we could say of this channel is lower price stocks, right? For folks that are trying to, quote, build up their account size. And then last but not least, let's open this to the top list. We'll let the race continue to run. Configure. I suspect this is going to be in the ballpark what we've seen. So a little lower on today's overall volume, a lot lower on the relative volume, but we need more juice on the up from the prior day close. And we also want to see stocks that are averaging at least 300,000 shares on a day. So we're trying to find stuff that's got some liquidity to it to let us get in and out of those stocks. And that's what you got going on this channel here. 130 SMA. On that chart that's there, along with a 10 SMA. So you've got a faster and slower line on here. Oh, one might consider something like this. Just sorry, my eyes jumped right to it on this Bullfrog AI Holdings. Whoops, where are we going? As the stock downtrended, starts to run sideways and starts to try to pull itself off this bottom, we can see this 10 SMA looking across that falling 130 SMA, and all of a sudden, if we got a trend up and a cross like that with it, it gives us a little fuel for the fire. Maybe run us back up towards that 320 area, give or take. I'm guessing that 320 anyways. 317. I was in the ballpark. So that's what you got going on there in the account builder channel. As a personal note, I think anybody with a smaller account, if you are, I would say, $10,000 or under, I'd be swing trading. I would not be day trading. That's my personal opinion on it, speaking from experience of having been there. And again, anybody with questions, please do not be shy. Sorry, just taking out an answer to someone here. Yeah, dock channel bar won't have them. You got to go to the regular channel bar. Dock channel bar has some of the channels aren't there. A, because of formatting reasons, and B, we wanted to keep the dock channel bar simpler, less things in there, less confusion, and all that. So you have to go to the regular channel bar to see those more channels like that. There is the show more on the dock channel bar, but it's just not going to show all of these. You have to come to the free floating channel bar. And you are very welcome there, True Seeker. You are welcome there, Dylan, as well. And again, don't be shy, folks. Keep those questions coming. I much rather have you all asking questions. Let's see what else. All right, well, I guess I'll load my layout back up. There we go. Tree map. There we go. Must have just been a hang up on my end that I couldn't get that as a tree map before. So again, anybody with questions, don't be shy. If not, we'll mess around with some more sectors here. Starting from the bottom. XLU, the Utes. What exactly is a Ute? Very interesting look here. Those October lows from a couple of years ago. A terribly drawn trend line, just so we're all on the same page. I'm just trying to illustrate up, but wedging itself at this point up into here. We'll see what happens to the utilities. So, one of the takeaways I got right away is we look at some of these sectors that have been punished recently and are down. And the only one that doesn't look good looks bad. It's going to be the semiconductors. They don't even look that bad. SOXX looks a little worse than the SMH, to be honest. A lot of sideways running for quite a while. Very, very choppy. Yes and no. Mike, see what's happening, my friend? Good to see you. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute. So yes and no on the channel thing. What you have to do is make all the changes in the channel you want to make, whatever it is you want to save, and then you would do this. You would go File, Save or Share to Cloud, click Entire Layout, give it a name here, and then save it. All right, and then you'd load it from your cloud from now on, and not that channel bar. So File, Load from Cloud, and then you find it up in here in your cloud like that. You can't save the changes to the actual channel bar. We push that out to users from our servers, so it goes out to everybody like that. I appreciate that, Mike C. The words of Jamie Hodge, I like to keep it simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things. You know the story. You know the drill. You've been around long enough. So yeah, that's what you got to do with that there, as far as the saving the channel bar goes. And then I'd name it something like my account builder or anything like that, of course, so that we know it's the account builder, but the one that we modified like that for ourselves. So what else is happening here on the red side? You know what? That's red for today. Quick, we got some time here, unless people start asking questions. Hey, wheat stocks are green today. I don't see that very often, right? What a joke. There's no comment on whether wheat or pot or whatever you want to call it is good or bad. Just stocks are uninvestable, absolutely uninvestable. Oil and services, interesting. That's oil fund, not services. Sorry, this is oil service, OIH. Interesting. All right, let's see what's really kicking alive though here. So, insurance, everybody's favorite thing. Everybody loves insurance, right? We all love insurance. Been on a steady grow for a hot minute there. It's still looking good overall. Financial sector, look at that. Everything be selling but the financial sector. Ain't that something, folks? Look at that. That's your entire financial sector sitting right snuggled up on all-time highs. Hasn't pulled back near a hair. Energy overall just continues to run itself sideways. If energy was an animal, energy would be a crab, right? Crabs like to walk sideways a lot. I think we can better illustrate that doing this here. Not gonna lie, there's some folks out there a few years ago shouting from the rooftop that we were in a commodity super cycle, especially with energy. I ain't seeing it. That's just me. Made this beautiful big rebound as far as the chart's concerned off COVID lows, and we have done squat since then. Yeah, Mike, see, I'm not doing any day trading myself. I've actually reduced a lot of positions right now. I'm not bearish by any stretch of anyone's imaginations. I continuously make fun of the perma bulls. Perma bears. I make fun of the perma bulls too, but not as much as I make fun of the perma bears because the perma bears are just always wrong. You know, I'm watching for things, try to dig in, and then try to get in when I believe there's some support found, trying not to grab a falling knife. But I got punished a month and a half ago, let's say, or so, on a couple of stocks where I'm like, I think we're set up for the move up again and the breakout, and we certainly were not. And I certainly fed the market gods. So that's the way it goes. Yeah, you know, listen. Weed's just uninvestable for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not going to get into any specific conversations about it because I'm not educated enough to know whatever. I've got my own thoughts on it, but nobody gives a crap about what I'm thinking. But the chart is just, I mean, you cannot deny this chart, right? Goodbye. And then like some whatever nonsense news came out that made this hot for like a month, if that even. And it's just a steady bleed again for years. Like it's not like, I don't even know what to say to that. It's just not investable. No money to be made there as far as I'm concerned on the market side of things. I mean, if you own a dispensary and you're doing well, has nothing to do with the price, the price action of these charts whatsoever. Anywho, neither here nor there. So, biotechs. Biotech's doing a whole lot of nothing also. Looking a little weak, looking a little heavy here. What do I mean by heavy? Well, you know, we got the sideways action here and they're drooping down. Like you're getting heavy on that sideways action. That's what I mean. Does that mean they'll continue to fall? No. Does that mean they'll bounce? Also, no. I have no idea. But this is an area certainly that they're pulling into that I'd be looking. If I'm looking for a bounce in biotechs, I'd be looking for it to try to bounce here. Also, I'd be looking here for the breakdown. If it breaks down from here, then I'd be looking to the next breakdown levels. You know, I'd say a breakdown level around there would be next on a weekly chart. That's what I'd be thinking there. So I do find it interesting that the financials, usually things you don't usually see in bearish tapes, the financials doing well, right? The financials are doing real well. And that's also reflected here in the KBE, which is going to represent your banking index, right? And the KRE, which represents your regional banks here. Neither one of those look bad. As always, I just want to point something out here. Does everybody remember when that Republic Bank or whatever out on the West Coast collapsed? That was that, right? Banking system didn't end though. Rebounded fairly nicely, actually, off that. So remember that for when people are telling you that the whole financial system's collapsing. They're full of crap. So, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Clearly, the overall market is extremely heavily tech weighted, right? And, XLK, that wasn't even close. All right, it was the right letters. One day I'm going to type this right. XLK. There you go, Chris. You could do it. I knew it. Good job. The XLK, good barometer for things. It doesn't look terrible. It doesn't look great, on this weekly chart here. Nice bust out of that there. Got ahead of itself in a pullback. Pulled back up into this all-time high area. It's really just run sideways. So, clearly you want to see a breakout on the overall market. We're going to need XLK to move. Highest weighting in the S&P, and obviously it is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is it, and so on and so forth. So gonna need that to happen. But if it runs sideways and you have some strength in some other areas, some precious metal strength, some banking strength, I think healthcare overall is held up all right. What's healthcare again? Can't remember what healthcare. That's transports. Consumer staples, what do they look like? Consumer staples looks fairly healthy, right? Looks real healthy overall. What's real estate and also real estate here? They don't look great. They don't look great. Your dealer brokers here for security exchanges. That looks pretty good here, but people must be putting money into their brokers, right? This real estate looks a little better than this one, so I want to come back to that real quick. Bring up a chart of Hood. As a matter of fact, I can. A little weekly chart. Got real ahead of itself and handing a lot back here. Working itself on a what some would call a washout bounce here. Washing out the rest of the longs here for a bounce. We'll see what happens. That's what it looks like on a weekly chart. On the daily chart, it looks a little different. That looks worse on a daily chart. That looks a lot worse on a daily chart, that sell-off. Don't kid yourself. That's a pretty significant sell-off, right? I mean, 66 and change, all the way down to 43-ish, give or take, 44. That's nothing to sneeze at for a sell-off, that's for sure. I think it's fair to say that much of this Robinhood move was crypto related. You had all the FOMO people all of a sudden like, oh, Bitcoin's going, let me get in there and put some money into Robinhood and buy some Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. So I think, it's safe to say that, Bitcoin tops out, can't get above, I don't know, whatever it was, 110,000, something like that, whatever that high was. It's washed out under 90,000 at this point. And, here we are. I think that's a big one there. Healthcare, IYH. I was searching for that a moment ago. Don't look great. Doesn't look great. I mentioned healthcare because I believe it's the second largest S&P 500 holding. So, this line obviously is a big deal. Below that line is not awesome, I'd say. If you're a bull, above that line is good if you're a bull. If you're a bear, that is what you want. So got about 15 minutes before I wrap up today. I will not be going overtime today, folks. I do have a meeting at 1 o'clock Eastern time that I must attend. So anybody with questions has them. I would highly encourage you to get those in now, please. If not, so be it. Fair enough. What do I think of NVIDIA? I think they're a very valuable company. I don't know. I don't have much of an opinion. I don't really take opinions on stocks. But I could say, we covered this pretty in depth earlier, but since nobody's asking anything else anyways, we can go over it. I think the fact that it traded back down to its low from a couple of days ago and it's hanging around, there's a big deal. They can break that low, we start to look at coming down this way again to this area here. I also think that its high of today was a block, right? Look at this, how it's touched that area a whole lot of times, price action. So it's got some work to do. That 135 area is clearly a big deal to the upside. This 125 area is clearly a big deal to the downside. And so, it's going to need to break one of those to resolve, at least temporarily. And outside of that, I'm stuck in that range. Clearly earnings were yesterday, and it's a mixed bag on the reaction to earnings. The mixed bag is we gapped up positive, we traded down negative, right? We're off the lows though. I would say this, semi-NVIDIA related, but earnings season related in general. We've seen many quarters where people were so bearish about things and earnings came in. There's mixed bags on earnings and some good, some bad, and the market continued to shrug it off and just move higher. We've actually seen a lot of positive earnings this season so far, beating top and bottom lines, guiding well, and the market is shrugging it off actually again. But this time the shrug off is the market is not moving up positively with it. So I think that's important to note. Is it a puzzle piece that you want to use in your trading? That's up to you. I have it in the back of my mind. As I mentioned earlier, we're not in a breakout environment. Whether you want to look at this NVIDIA chart for it or Qs of the SPY, every time we try to break out, we're getting stuffed and pulled right back, right? but we're not collapsing by any stretch of anyone's imagination either. So it's kind of one of those finding the relative strength on the pullbacks. You know, what's when we've got a sell-off going on in general, what's pulling back the least, and then trying to see if any of those fit our plan and how we want to execute should we dig into those pullback levels. Now, how can I scan for stocks like ESGL that are traded in the pre-market? Well, so I have a video I did on creating pre-market scans. I'll go ahead and share that with the group here. You can bookmark that and look at it in your own leisure time, because I'll go over a few things right away that's covered in there without any question. Let's pull up your ESGL. Let's get some pre-market action on this chart going. Okay, so this stock didn't do anything in the pre-market, like literally at all. I mean, 295 shares on that 5-minute candle. I mean, that's not tradable. That was never tradable in the pre-market. There's no way to know that this stock was going to do this in the pre-market. Even the market open was completely muted on this. So this, you know, I don't know what to tell you on this stock, but there's nothing to comment on the pre-market for this. Sorry to say that, but you know, this stock did nothing in the pre-market. The stock didn't do anything till 10:30 Eastern, an hour after the pre-market ended. And I don't know what caused it to go parabolic like that. I've got no clue. But what I would say in general, when you're scanning in the pre-market, you know, if you're doing an alert window, you know, you go new alert window, maybe looking at pre-market highs as an alert. Add that alert, put a check mark there. And then I would also add to it, in case you get a stock that pulled off the pre-market highs, like a lot, and then starts running up again, we have running up alerts. So you could look at the running up intermediate, running up, and running up now. All three would be valid. You may also consider 5-minute high alert. So maybe you want to do something like the running up and the 5-minute high plus the pre-market high. I would use those three alerts in an alert window. And then, you know, you got to decide on some filters, right? You know, minimum amount of shares. I have stuff that's in my default here. So, what's your minimum you want to see before it starts to move? You know, 50,000, 500,000, 30,000. You know, you have to decide here, because look, if something is traded 20,000 shares by 8:30 in the morning, while that's, you know, more than a lot of other stocks have traded in the pre-market, it's not significant. It's not tradable. It's still going to be illiquid for the most part. You're not going to be able to get in and out in the pre-market. But clearly, if something's on the move, you don't want to see it after it's crossed 1 million shares, or, you know, you don't want to be alerted to it first time after it's crossed 1 million shares, right? So it's that happy medium that you have to decide what's right for you. Is it 80,000 shares, at 50,000 shares, at 70,000 shares, 110,000 shares, right? You know, so those are the things I'd be considering with that. Do not use the relative volume filter in the pre-market. It does not work. If you give it a value, it will block data in the pre-market, so don't do that. You can look at, if you wanted to, instead of relative volume today on the percent basis here. It works like this. 100 is normal. So when a stock reaches 100, that means it's done its normal volume for a 10-day average. If it goes to 200, it means it's done 2 times, and 300 3 times, and so on and so forth. So if you got a stock that's done, like, you know, 20, 30, 40% of its whole day's volume in the pre-market, that's significant, right? But also keep in mind that there are stocks that trade 100, 1,000, 10,000 shares in a day. So if all of a sudden one of those stocks is traded like 3,000 shares and it's showing it's done 5,000 what it's normally doing, it's still not a significant number. So you got to keep these things in perspective, right? As far as the amount of shares traded. But that's no different than how the relative volume filter works as well, right? You got a stock that's normally trades 10 shares a day and today's traded 100. Well, it'd have a 10 relative volume, but 100 shares is nothing, right? Nobody could possibly buy and sell into that stock. Or you could, but it's unlikely to work well in your favor. So I would just, keep that in mind like that. So that's where I would head on the alert window configure for the pre-market. Topless, a little easier, I think, in the sense of we wanted to see stuff that's up the most in the pre-market, right? So I would be coming to, change from close on a percent basis, and I would sort by that. I'd click sort by that, and then give it some filters here, whatever your price range is, $1 minimum or 10-cent minimum, whatever it happens to be. Minimum amount of volume you want to see on it traded again today as far as shares go. If you wanted to use that volume percent and give it a minimum, like 10, 15, I probably wouldn't go higher than 25 though for the pre-market, because remember, we're talking about 100 equals it's normal for the whole day, right? So if you've done, in the pre-market 15, 20, 25% of your whole day's volume, and it's something people look to be actively coming in and out of, that's meaningful in that regard. And then, you might consider something like a 1 minute volume as well. I lied. If you don't have a custom for the 1 minute volume in there, not going to be able to use it in the top list. You really want one, and throw it into your account. You just got to give me an email, and I can get around to it later in the day. Info at trade. You use the 5 minute volume here in its place, and maybe throw something like a 20, a 30 in there. Because again, it's pre-market. So even things that are doing crazy, with the exception of the craziest crazies, they're not going to be the insane that you'll see once the market opens, right? That's the way that will go. So just always remember, pre-market crazy is never the same as regular hours crazy. Generally the way that works. So, as we approach the 1 o'clock hour here, I do have to leave for a meeting that starts at 1. So I am going to begin my walkout here. Good crowd today. Appreciate the questions. I always prefer it when you folks ask the questions and drive the content. It's much better that way. It helps us get you what you need out of the software. Everybody's got an agenda. I've got an agenda here, no different than anybody else on this planet. My agenda is to get as many people subscribing to Trade Ideas as possible, but that agenda only works if subscribers are successful with the software. If you subscribe and you're not doing well, that doesn't bode well for us, right? And help anybody. So I think that's important to note here, and that's why we do these live sessions every single day. And we have the Traders Room with Barry every single day for many more hours than these live sessions go as well. So, two, I think, extremely important things to keep in mind here. For those of you that are on the YouTube side here, which are very few of you, I'm going to assume you know how to get into the Traders Room with Barry already. If you do not know how to get into the Traders Room with Barry, then shoot us an email, info@trade-ideas.com. I put it up there a moment ago, and we'll get you a link over to the Traders Room like that. So my pleasure, Hybrid. I do appreciate everybody that has been here, whether you're watching on the Twitter side or the YouTube side. We do this every day. I hope you guys keep coming back. I believe there's room for everybody at the top to succeed in this market. It does take work. It's not easy, but it is quite rewarding. I will say that. It's nice to have that extra income. Yeah, we got a pre-market channel. Absolutely. There's a pre-market channel. A lot of people, for whatever reason, when I tell them we have a pre-market channel, they're like, I don't really care about the pre-market channel. I want my own stuff. But yeah, if you click the show more, you get the pre-market channel here on the dock channel bar. Or if you go to the free floating channel bar, pre-market channel is right there before you even click the show more. So we got them. Certainly got them. And you could use them as a basis to, a platform as a template to leap and create your own scans, edit them a little bit, save them with your edits, and so on and so forth.
and all that. So I do have to run, folks. I thank you all very, very kindly. info@trade-ideas.com will get you to us via email, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and we will see you later.